Jake goes live to show his followers his collection of bizarre dolls. According to him, Chucky is the only item missing from his collection, but the problem is that this doll is no longer available on the market. So he asks his followers to help him find someone who has this relic and is willing to sell it. That morning, Henry is having coffee with his family and takes the opportunity to show them the book he found in the library. Reading it, the boy discovered that a former president had perished in the White House, and his spirit has been haunting the place ever since. After hearing this story, Grant takes the opportunity to terrorize his younger brother even more, and Charlotte gets up to take Henry to school. Before leaving, the boy asks his father to take Joseph to work as the doll wants to see James's office hours later during a meeting with his team. The president discovers that the previous night's blackout happened because the White House was hacked and decides to take some security measures to ensure that his family is not in danger. Meanwhile, Joseph is sitting in an armchair listening to the whole conversation and preparing to put his evil plan into action in the neighboring town. Lexi uses her social networks to attract the attention of the audience in the hope of finding her missing sister. Last Christmas, her mother was eliminated in a terrible way by Chucky, and her younger sister was taken. Lexi then shows the last photo she took of Caroline and asks her followers to help her find her. Later, when he returns to his office, Jane realizes that Joseph is not in the chair where he was left. Instead, he's sitting in the president's armchair. Suspicious. He goes to his secretary and asks who entered his office, but Sam says she was the only one there in the evening. When he returns home, Henry goes to talk to his father, and James says that he left the doll in the boys' room before entering. The boy asks Teddy to search the room, and as he approaches Joseph, the security guard finds a small dagger when he realizes he has been discovered. Chucky steals Teddy's gun and blows his head off with one shot. The doll then puts the gun in the security guard's hand, making it look like he has taken his own life. After committing the crime, Chucky calls Jake and gives him a clue as to where he is because he knows the young man is trying to find him. A few days later, Teddy's funeral takes place in. James attends the ceremony with his family while mourning the perish of his best friend. Henry holds Joseph on his lap, without even realizing that it was the doll that had eliminated him. As the case involves a White House official, dozens of reporters show up to cover the story, and all the members of James' family end up on TV. Through this report, Jake and his friends discover the doll's whereabouts and decide to go after it. A few days after Teddy's perish, James and Charlotte hire an investigator to find out if any criminals may be involved in the case. Seeing Chucky sitting in the chair next to him. That night, Chucky uses Rachel's cell phone to contact Jake, and the trio discover that their guardian has been eliminated by the doll, as have their parents. After the purr of her mother, Lexi took on the mission of finding her sister, who she believes has been taken by criminals. What the young woman doesn't realize is that Caroline is just as cruel as Chucky and has worked together with the doll to find and eliminate the people who have harmed him in some way. After eliminating Andy with his knife, Chucky savors his revenge, but soon realizes that there is something wrong with his body. For some reason, the doll is getting old, and after looking at his reflection in the mirror, Chucky decides to consult a voodoo book to find out how to become young again. However, Caroline says that the spell won't work, and they decide to pay a visit to the doctor. After assessing him, Dr. Rosen says that the doll has been contaminated by Christian magic and is dying according to the doctor. There's still no cure for this type of magic, but he suggests a possible solution for Chucky. In order to make peace with Delilah and allow his soul to remain incarnate in the doll, Chucky has to sacrifice 6 human lives. So that night, he chooses a target and enlists Caroline's help to break into one of the houses in the neighborhood. After entering the house, Chucky eliminates everyone inside with a knife. While Caroline watches the chaos, the doll then makes a request to Delilah, but is completely ignored. Apparently, Chucky would have to do even more evil to win the entity's approval, so he decided to infiltrate the White House. On the day of his 5-year-old brother's funeral, Henry found the doll leaning against the headstone, and Chucky introduced himself as Joseph. After that day, when the demonic doll finally managed to infiltrate the White House, the family's problems began. The president spots a child in the middle of the hall and decides to approach him because the boy looks very much like his son, Joseph. However, on seeing James approaching, the child runs away and the president goes after him a few minutes after arriving at the party. Lexi convinces Grant to introduce her to the mansion and distracts the young man, while Jake and Devin go off in search of Chucky. However, when searching Henry's room, the pair realize that the doll isn't there and call Lexi to help them look for it. After going down to the party room, the trio find the boy with Chucky on his lap, and he's holding a knife. Frightened, Devin tries to convince Henry to hand over the doll, but the conversation is interrupted when the lights go out. Just then, Chucky disappears and is found by the president. After picking him up, James feels confused, but is escorted by security to safety. Then Annie, the nanny, appears and claims to be feeling the presence of several spirits in the room. As she says this, the woman and everyone around her end up being crushed by a large chandelier that plummets from the ceiling. After this tragedy, the president and his entire family are taken to the secret room while Chucky tries to ask for Dal's blessing again. After performing the ritual, the doll removes his mask and discovers that he's even older than before, which makes him completely angry. The next day, Chucky decides to rest in his room while Henry goes to school, as he is very weak, even though he's about to perish at any moment. The doll continues with his evil thoughts, and when the chambermaid shows up to clean the room, he sees yet another opportunity to put his villainy into action. While the woman is collecting the dirty clothes, the doll changes the drink in her bottle for bleach, and the cleaner ends up dying of poisoning. Sometime later, Henry comes into the room and finds his doll on the verge of elimination as he grabs a blanket to warm him up. Charlotte finds her husband's body and calls Price to help her deal with the situation, as the woman doesn't know what else to do while they're trying to discover the identity of the criminal. A message written in blood appears on the wall and says that it was Chucky who eliminated the president. Soon after, a team shows up to collect James's body, and Charlotte tries to stop them, but soon remembers that her children are in danger and goes after them. She quickly rushes to Grant's room and orders the young man to pack, because they're going to Chicago. However, before the woman and her children can leave the house, Price appears to stop them and says that until this case is resolved, she cannot leave the White House. Price's fear is that the existence of an attack on the White House by supernatural creatures will be made public, because if that happens, the whole country will collapse. When they return from their appointment with Dr. Rosen, Jake and Devin reveal that Chucky is dying. But Lexi is still determined to go after the doll to try and find out where her little sister is. That afternoon, Price summons Charlotte to a meeting and reveals that he has hired a paranormal expert to help him with the investigation. What's more, the detective has hired a stuntman to impersonate the president for the next few days. His name is Randall Jenkins, but physically he's identical to James. While Charlotte argues with Price about this plan, Lexi and her friend arrive at the White House, and along with them, a strong storm is approaching. During dinner, the First Lady sits down at the table with Grant and his friends to eat pizza, and the young man begins to wonder about his father's whereabouts. It's been a few days since James's elimination, and Charlotte still hasn't broken the news to her children, so she does everything she cannot to touch the subject when the woman leaves the room for a moment. Lexi decides to come clean and tells Grant that Henry's doll is possessed by the spirit of a criminal. When he discovers that his family is in danger, the young man decides to help, and in the meantime, Henry decides to pay his father a visit. As he approaches, the president's stunt double Chucky shows his claw and points a gun at Randall. After taking him hostage, the puppet orders the stuntman to go down to the main hall and eliminates all the guards who try to stop him. After stealing the gun of one of the security guards, the doll forces Randall to give an order to attack the army. Chucky's plan is to bomb some countries in Europe in an attempt to start World War III, but Grant and his friends manage to find him before the missiles are launched. When confronted, the puppet reveals that since he is going to be eliminated, his plan is to take 8 billion people with him. In this way, Chucky believes that he will be remembered as the greatest person who ever lived and will be forever marked in history. Just as the missile launch was about to take place, Jake attacks the doll, and Randall manages to steal the gun. He then shoots the monster, and Chucky is seriously injured. Just as he was about to perish, the doll presses the red button and sends a missile to the North Pole. Luckily, the detonation takes place far from civilization and no humans are hurt. Soon after, Chucky's body turns to ash and disappears along with Lexi's hopes of finding Caroline. Despite Chucky's elimination, the spirit of Charles Ray, who is imprisoned in the doll, lives on and intends to carry out his revenge. Suddenly, Price appears and asks the young people to accompany him to his living room because Carol and Timothy need help to get rid of the entities that reside in that house, while the medium tries to make contact with the deceased. Randall records a message to let everyone know that he's stepping away from politics to take care of his health. After making the announcement, the man discovers that Price intends to eliminate him in order to keep the whole operation secret and tries to escape, realizing that he's surrounded. Randall enters the elevator, but one of the guards manages to catch up with him and they start a hand-to-hand fight until a huge amount of blood starts pouring from the ceiling. Soon the pool began to fill up and, in his last seconds of life, Randall could clearly see Charles's image. When the elevator opens, Carol and the teenagers see the two lifeless men inside, and Timothy decides to hold a demonstration session to try to get in touch with Chucky. However, during the invocation, supernatural phenomena begin to occur, causing despair in everyone present, seeing a huge speaker rising. The young people move away so as not to be attacked, but Carol, the vice president, and his secretary remain seated and end up being electrocuted when a young man wakes up. It is Charles's soul that is in his body. In the meantime, while the young people were trying to communicate with the higher plane Price, and his men installed dozens of explosives around the house, and the bombs went off, hearing the noise of the explosions. Grant and his friends try to escape, but end up getting separated by the fire. And Timothy gets into the elevator with Jake as they both descend to the first floor. Charles attacks the medium and traps Timothy inside the burning elevator. During the fire, Grant goes looking for Higgs and finds his friend almost eliminated. Furious, he strikes Price and locks the detective inside his office, where he is attacked by dozens of spirits as he has nowhere else to go. The man ends up caught in the flames and burned alive. On the other hand, Grant manages to escape with Devin and Lexi and finally finds his mother again. Jake then appears and hugs his friends, who still don't suspect that the young man's body has been taken over by Charles. That night, the trio go after Caroline, who, according to Chucky, is staying at the house of an elderly man called Wendell Wilkins after receiving an invitation to enter the old man's house. The youngsters discover that he creates various dolls and considers them to be his children. It was Wendell who created the Chucky doll in 1987, and he reveals that he still has a replica in his closet. Just then, Caroline appears, and Lexi runs to hug her, but soon discovers that her sister is a criminal and has been helping Chucky all this time. After this revelation, Lexi and Devin discovered that Jake is possessed, but Caroline performs a spell to return Chucky's spirit to the doll. After the ritual, Jake's consciousness returns to his body, and Charles is resurrected as a doll. Caroline then helps Chucky and Wendell to transfer the souls of the youngsters into the bodies of 3 other dolls. Hours later, in the middle of the night, Nika shows up at the mansion and finds the young people imprisoned, but she also ends up becoming another victim of Wendell. Meanwhile, Caroline hits the road and drives to the nearest town in the company of Chucky and his girlfriend Tiffany.